All right, all right. I'd like to say good morning to everyone. Good morning and welcome to Commercial Multifamily Masterminds. We are a member of the GOB network of apartment investors. The GOB network seeks to democratize commercial real estate via mentoring and deal making by providing the resources to close investment opportunities and improve returns. Simply putting, the GOB network is an educational platform that will provide network and support and opportunity for you to get your deals and for you to reach your goals of owning whatever number of doors by the end of the year. The mastermind mission. So here in the mastermind group, our goal here is to get rid of that competitive mindset. It is here where we will do everything in our power to assist you, working with you, providing you with the network, providing you with support. We're going to provide you with opportunity to get those deals done. We have accredited, non-accredited, we have LPs, GPs, we have people that want to be part of a deal that's looking to invest. So here at the Commercial Multifamily Mastermind, this is what we are about. And we're about working together as one. So welcome to the Commercial Multifamily Masterminds. And again, we are a member of the GOB network of apartment investors. The mastermind principle, the coordination of knowledge and effort of two or more people who work toward a definite purpose. The GOB network is a network that was established by a gentleman who has a big dream. And to dream, the dream he has is to make investing and learning about commercial multifamily accessible to everyone. This individual is a friend, a mentor to me. And when he asked me to be a part of the GOB, there was no way I could say no. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the creator and the founder of the GOB, Mr. Jim Biggs.
Hello, this is Jim Biggs, founder of the GOB Network. I think most everyone knows that we
Sorry about that.
Started the network as a member-driven platform to help more people get deals done. Whether you're a new investor that has no clue how to get started, or you're a seasoned investor and you're just looking for more net worth, liquidity, or other pieces that might be missing from your team. As an example, we recently sponsored a 134-unit deal in Houston, Texas, an 88-unit deal in Tulsa, a 34-unit deal in DFW, a 28-unit deal in Baton Rouge, a 24-unit deal in Dayton, Texas, along with 42 units of self-storage. All of this was with members of the GOB network, and we have many more LOIs, many in negotiations and under contract. These are just a few examples of deals where we have helped new investors get started and to work towards doing bigger deals. Most of these investors have come to us because they had not done a bigger deal. Some had quite a few deals under their belt, having started small and grown exponentially, which is what we advise a lot of people to do. But when they got to the point where they didn't have enough money or the bank told them they needed more experience, they came to us and we helped them sponsor that deal. So I just want to use that as an example of what we're trying to do to help everyone that's on the platform. And it's available to anyone. If you're interested, just go visit thegobnetwork.com. Also, I want to say how proud we are of the many faces of the GOB network and the many places that are represented. Thank you for being part of that by being here today. So let me close by saying to you, get on board, because the GOB network can do the same thing for you. Oh, and one more thing. Let me say we are especially proud of Daryl Murphy and his mastermind group, and to have them as part of the GOB network. Daryl is one of the founding members and sits on the board of advisors for the GOB network. Thank you very much to my friend, Daryl Murphy.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much. When you close on a property, there are a lot of things that's going to take place, and it's going to be a lot of moving parts, fast moving parts. But one of the things that you need to get done is a cost segregation study. And because I'm not going to try to explain it, because that's why I'm asking Mark to do it. so Mark Gross, that's what he does. And he did do the cost segregation study for our property in Dayton, Texas. So Mark, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, let everybody know who you are, what you do, and then you tell me what you want me to play first and to do. Okay, take it away.
Sure. Thank you very much, Daryl. Appreciate it. I'm Mark Gross from CSSI. What I do, as Daryl indicated, is cost segregation studies. We actually have a team of dozens of engineers in our corporate office that do the actual grunt work for the cost segregation studies, but we'll get into it in the presentation. What it basically does is provide studies which will eliminate or reduce your IRS tax liability, and it's all in the IRS tax code. So rather than me reiterate what's going to be in the presentation, why don't we get started? Daryl, if you want to go ahead and start with the video.
Sounds good.
That would be great.
All right.
Do you own or lease commercial or income-producing property? Are you depreciating that property over a long period of time? What if I told you that by making some changes to the way you're depreciating your building, you could increase your cash flow? Cost segregation is a widely used method for reclassifying assets in your building from real property to personal property, creating shorter class lives. This creates a depreciation deduction, which reduces your tax liability. The outcome is increased cash flow. Think about what you could do with tax savings of $40,000 to $80,000 for every $1 million in building cost. Purchase additional property, increase your marketing budget, grow your workforce, or possibly make those much-needed repairs. This is your money. At CSSI, our team of construction and tax experts calculates the engineering-based results needed to obtain this substantial cash flow. Contact a CSSI representative today to receive a no-cost preliminary analysis. We want to help you take advantage of this amazing tax strategy.
It's your money. Keep more of it.
All right.
Okay, Daryl, we can start with the presentation.
Sounds good. Here we are. Okay.
So let's go to the next screen. And Daryl,
Yes.
can you put, there we go, full screen. we go to the next page. Daryl, why do investors own real estate?
We own real estate for tax advantages. We own real estate for depreciation and several other things.
Maybe cash flow?
Cash flow, yep. Legacy hold.
Appreciation?
Yep.
There's a whole litany of reasons why people invest in real estate. Let's go to the next screen. Is it advantageous to quote unquote lose money in real estate?
Mm.
What do you think about that, Daryl?
Yeah, it can happen.
It kind of seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Why would somebody want to lose money? Well, I'll show you what cost segregation could do to help you quote unquote lose money. It's not, you're not actually spending cash, but you're reducing your taxes with that. So let's go to the next page. We're going to talk about cost segregation, bonus depreciation strategies, and things of that nature. This is a little bit dated now. We've got the mask on Benjamin Franklin there with the COVID hopefully going away, but let's go on to the next page there. So here are a couple of the topics that we're going to cover. We're going to talk about cost segregation and bonus depreciation and changes in bonus depreciation, candidates for cost segregation, partial asset disposition, and when it doesn't make sense to do it. So let's kind of talk about what cost segregation does. But if you can go back to the previous page for a second, Daryl. What we do, like I indicated, is our studies will create a non-cash expense. So if you look at your profit and loss statement, let's say you have $100,000 in income, you have to pay income tax on that, right, Daryl, based on your tax rate?
Yeah.
Well, what if our study creates an additional $100,000 depreciation? That's a non-cash expense that nets against your income, and now instead of paying your tax rate of income, you pay nothing. So that's in essence how that works. And what bonus depreciation is, and this is something that came about at the end of 2017 when what was called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that came out of Washington, D.C. What it indicated that was for new property acquisitions, what you could do is reduce 100% any of your items, components within the property that have a less than 20-year life the first year of ownership. Let me repeat that. Bonus depreciation allowed you to depreciate 100% of anything which had a less than 20-year life within the first year. Now, what's an example of that? What does that mean? Well, you take a look at your carpeting. Carpeting is considered to be like a 5-year property. You take a look at your parking lot. That's a 15-year property. So what our study does is identify what are those items within those categories that can be depreciated faster. Now, bonus depreciation has got some changes coming along. The calendar year 2022 was the last year for 100%. It goes 80% this year with subsequent reductions of 20% a year until it goes away. Now, we all know it's very political in nature, and we suspect it's probably going to come back in some format because we know what's going on and a lot of stuff going on in Washington, D.C. So what are good candidates for cost segregation? Really any property type. I work on triple net lease properties, hotels, office, and industrial, multifamily, you name it, all property types nationwide. And I'm also going to be talking here later about PADS, which is partial asset disposition. Let's say you're buying a property and you're doing a renovation on it. There's ways in which you can additionally increase your depreciation based on that. And when it doesn't make sense to do cost segregation would be, let's say that you're going to be doing a quick flip on a property. You're going to buy it and then sell it within a year or two. There's something called a recapture tax. And it's not advantageous to go ahead and do a study. And that's one of the pre-qualifying questions that we'll ask is, what's your hold period going to be? Because if you're planning on keeping at least 3 to 5 years, then it probably makes sense. Another criteria might be, what's the size of the property? It is a pretty low threshold. really anything which has a property cost of about $250,000 or greater, excluding the land value, because you can't depreciate the land. So that works well with single family rentals, either short term or long term. So Daryl, let's go on to the next page here. What you'll see here is that, you know, I'm not necessarily going to make you I want to make you a tax hero. I want you to be able to have at least an overall understanding of what this is. It may not make you an expert at it, but you'll be able to refer people. You'll be able to really have a better understanding of how it works, so that you'll be able to help your clients or yourself in the properties that you're doing. And if you look at the bottom there, you'll see that there's a rough range of return of between $30,000 to $80,000 per $1 million in building costs. Again, what you need to do is take a look at the building cost, subtract the land. You can't depreciate the land. And why is there such a big spread there? Well, think about it. Let's say you have an industrial property, which is about maybe it's distribution or manufacturing or something like that. You're going to have about 80% typically out in the warehouse area and 20% office. Now, in that industrial area, you're not going to have as many componentry within that area that can be depreciated as much as you would, let's say, in the office area or in a multifamily or medical facility or things of that nature. So that's the reason why there's a big spread. I heard somebody mention here earlier about a mobile home park. Mobile home parks are excellent candidates for cost segregation. I've done those, and we get very, very good returns on those. So let's go on to the next page. And some people say, well, this sounds like a real tax loophole. How is this possible? Well, it really isn't. This is something which is in the IRS tax code. And of the tens of thousands of studies that we've done over the last 20 years, we've never had a study trigger an IRS audit. We will defend the study at no cost in case you ever do get audited. And we've never had a study overturned. Now, why is that? The reason why is because we do it all by the book. We look at what are the IRS tax rules and regulations. We make sure we will double check and triple check all the numbers, make sure everything is right, and to make sure that when we deliver something to you, that it's going to be bulletproof. And we want you to be able to sleep well at night knowing that's not going to be an issue with an IRS audit. Next page. So again, what I talked about here, what are some of the things that a cost segregation study will do? It will take a look at what are the components within that property that can be depreciated faster. And there we have something which shows a 27.5 and a 39 year for straight line. Do you know what that is, Daryl, the difference there?
Yeah, that's the depreciation difference of a build, like how much time you could depreciate over.
Yeah, now there's some property types which are 27.5 and some that are 39 year. Why is there a difference? Well, 27.5 year will pertain to residential properties. So that could be a single family rental. It could be a multifamily property. That's just based on the IRS rules. They have a 27.5 year straight line depreciation. The 39 is what pertains to all other property types. And one other thing I'll mention here is also cost effective for tenant improvements, for TI improvements. And the question will come up, well, who can get the tax benefits from that? Well, it really depends on who's paying for it. If it's the landlord that's paying for it, it's coming out of his pocket, then he's the one that can do it. If it's the tenant themselves, then we can do a study based on a TI for just the tenant. Sometimes that happens for like a medical facility, because frequently when they do that, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars in order for them to retrofit a property so that they can utilize it for their purposes. As far as return on investment for our studies, typically there would be like maybe a 10 to 30 time ROI on that. You might have a smaller return, let's say on a smaller, maybe single family home, where maybe it might cost you $3,000, $4,000 for a study, and the savings might be in the, $20,000, $25,000 range. Really depends on the situation, but most of my clients, it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that they're saving in taxes. So let's go on to the next one. Is there anybody here, or Daryl, do you happen to remember the old McDonald's commercial they talked about? Let's go on to the next one here, a couple pages where it says, do you remember the 2 all beef patty special
Patty,
sauce?
special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickled onions on sesame seed bun.
You remember that, don't you?
Yeah.
when I do this presentation in front of a room with some of the youngsters, they don't remember that commercial. But if you grew up some years back, you'll remember that commercial. And we use this because it's kind of a good analogy. When you talk about the straight line method, that's kind of like looking at a building or a hamburger as one entity. It's in this particular case, a hamburger is $3.99, or for a building is whatever the cost is for it. But what a cost segregation study is doesn't look at it as that building and just its one structure. It looks at all the different components of it. So that's why we use that Big Mac analogy. Okay, let's move on. So again, you can see in the bucket in the upper left-hand corner, you see the 39, 27 and a half. If you remember from our earlier conversation, we talked about 39 being the straight line depreciation method for most property types, but for residential, there's your 27 and a half year. So there's still going to be some components within the property that are going to have to be depreciated on a straight line method. Remember, I talked about bonus depreciation. That looks at anything which has a less than 20-year life. Well, some examples of that might be your land improvements, your parking lot, your landscaping. If you look at your 5-year property, that's going to be your carpeting and other components that can be depreciated within that bucket. But again, let's say your structural components, your brick, your facade, things of that nature, those parts of the property are still going to have to be depreciated on a straight line method. So some people think, oh, if we had bonus depreciation, that's 100%. That meant that you're able to depreciate 100% of the property at the first year. Well, no, that's not the case. It's any of those components within the property which had a less than 20-year life, you could depreciate it. And of course, that does go down to 80% for this year. And on that subject, I'll give you an example. I'm working with a number of clients right now that closed on properties in 2022 and actually earlier than that. We can still give them 100% bonus depreciation, even though we're doing the study this year, because the timing of that is not based on when you do the study. It's based on when's the acquisition of that property. So if somebody bought something in 2022, they're on tax extension right now, and we're able to get these studies completed this summer so they can have them for their taxes in the fall period. And John's asking a question about what about 2021? Yes, you can still go back and do a cost segregation for something that was acquired in 2021. It does require an extra hoop you need to jump through. There's something called a Form 3115, which tells the IRS, I used to do straight line depreciation, but now I do accelerated depreciation. So you can go back to earlier years when you acquired a property. Now, some people ask the question, well, how far can you go back? And it's going to vary depending upon the property. But if you own something for 15 or 20 years, it's probably not even worth looking at, because a good portion of that property has already been depreciated on the straight line method. But for you've owned something for maybe up to 5-10 years, again, depending upon the size of the property, it may make sense to go back and do that. But with each year that you do it, you're going to have less of a savings because more of it has already been depreciated on the straight line method. Okay, let's go to the next one. One thing we talked about here were some of the elements within the structural property that have to be depreciated straight line method. And then you can, I'm not going to read all these different categories, but you can take a look at that and you can see these are examples of some of the things that can be depreciated on a 5 to 7 year or 15-year basis. Give everybody a chance to look that over. You got any questions so far, Darryl?
No, not yet.
Okay, let's move on. Kind of just give you a little bit more of a description of some of the items that are 5 to 7 year property. Again, I referred to medical facilities. That's a big part of our business. You can see the reason why is because there's just so many elements within a property like that need to be depreciated on a faster basis. And let's go to the next slide. What I like about this one, it gives a nice pictorial of what's the difference between doing a straight line depreciation. If you look at the blue line, that's what a straight line depreciation is going to be. If you look at the red line, that's going to be accelerated depreciation without bonus depreciation. And then your green line, you can see a huge spike there. That's what your bonus depreciation is. Your front end loading, basically, a lot of the depreciation within that first year. And with the time value of money, with that money that you get, you're going to reinvest that. You're going to buy other properties. You're going to improve properties. You're going to do other things. You're going to get nice and most likelihood double-digit returns on that, which is far in excess of what it would do if you just kept it in the property and depreciated over a number of years. Next page. Again, one thing we talked about, what are different building types that are good for cost segregation? Darryl, what do you think about a golf course? I said you can't depreciate land. Do you think that would be a good candidate?
Well, you could appreciate the carts. It's like the equipment. There is a building on a golf course.
Yeah, you're going to have your building on there. What about your parking lot?
Parking lot, yeah. And if there's a restaurant on there, it could. Yeah. That's another thing.
Clubhouse. So so again, even though it may sound counterintuitive because you can't depreciate land, a golf course is a great candidate for a cost segregation study. So this will just give you an example of some of the ones that work well. We can go on to the next page. You can see some of the advantages. Again, cash flow, first year. What you do is you maximize tax deductions. So I'll just reiterate this again because I think it's kind of important. If you have like $100,000 in income and you're paying taxes on that based on your tax rate, if you have additional depreciation, that brings it down to zero. Now, one of the things that I think there's kind of a misunderstanding, or sometimes I don't think it's intentional, but maybe misrepresented, especially from syndicators, is what are the advantages for all their investors? I'll start by saying there's something which would be considered to be the gold standard of being able to take benefit from that, and that is being a real estate professional or having a real estate professional as a spouse. Now, what does that mean? Well, you look it up from IRS tax rules, you'll see you need to be able to materially participate in properties. You have to work at least 750 hours a year in that. It's not a good idea to claim to be a real estate professional and have a W-2. That's gonna be a red flag for being audited. But I'll give you an example. I'm working with one client now on the East Coast. He's a very high W-2 surgeon. He's bought a number of properties around the country. His wife is a real estate professional. So the benefits that are derived from the property not only go against the property itself, but can go against his W-2 income. What do you think about that? You like that, Darryl?
I sure enough do.
That's like I said, that's kind of the gold standard. Now the other thing is, let's say someone is a limited partner. They're not materially participating in it, and let's say they only have the one property. Well, some syndicators will ask me, well, how will this cost segregation study help my my LPs? Well, the standard answer, unfortunately, is that it depends. I'm not trying to evade the question. It's just that it's really going to depend on the variable. You know, do they have a spouse who's a real estate professional? Do they have other properties that maybe the write-offs can go against their other properties that they have? So it's really, I really suggest that people go back to their tax counsel and say, what is my unique circumstance here? Because I think even though this is our business and this is what we try to help people with, I think sometimes it's oversold as far as this is what the benefit's going to be for all people, because it's not going to be the same for all people. It's going to be variable depending upon what your unique circumstances are. So again, I suggest go back to your tax counsel, find out what your unique circumstances are, and find out what you can take advantage of. Plus, we all know that all investments are not the same. There's some that cash flow day one. There's others where you're not going to be able to cash flow until future periods. So it's a lot of different variables there. So let's go on to the next page. This kind of gives you another graphical depiction of some property types, actually with some real live numbers here. You can see like a self-storage there. I'm not going to read all the numbers, but you can look at the acquisition cost. Again, these purchase costs are the cost of the property excluding the land value, because you can't depreciate land. I was working with one client recently. I said, what's the cost? And they said, well, the building is worth this. Well, unfortunately, whatever the property is worth is immaterial. It's based on what you paid for it. Also had a situation here recently where someone said, well, I want you to do this study for me. And I said, well, how much you paid for it? Well, actually, we didn't pay for it. It was been in the family for a number of years and it was just retitled. Well, no money changed hands. So therefore, we're not able to do a study on that. It's been owned for decades. And it doesn't work for a situation like that. So again, what we do is we'll take a look at all the different variables and we'll try to provide guidance as far as what makes sense to go forward with this. John Thompson has a good question there. He says, what happens if bonus depreciation goes away? Well, think about this, John. We talked about bonus depreciation coming about for new acquisitions at the end of 2017 and at 100%. You also heard me say that we've been doing this for 20 years. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that we were doing cost segregation before there even was bonus depreciation. So you remember that graph from some pages back. We had the blue line, we had the red line, and the green line. Well, the red line shows the accelerated depreciation. So even if the green line of the bonus depreciation goes away, there's still going to be a way in which, for instance, for carpeting, you can depreciate that over a 5-year period instead of doing it over the 27.5 or 39 years. It may not be as good as doing it in year one, but it's still advantageous to be able to do that depreciation faster. Okay, let's go on to the next page. Is that an ugly building, Daryl?
Nope, that's a beautiful building to me.
Okay. No, now what I like about this one is, and you can't really see it, because this thing had a really huge parking lot. So look at the cost basis on that, about 1.8 million. The depreciation we were able to get on this particular one was look at that, over $877,000 on that particular one, because there's a large parking lot area and other componentry there. So it's not necessarily based on how attractive a building is. That's why we offer a free preliminary analysis, which will show you a very conservative estimate of what your savings are going to be for your property. Okay, so let's go on to the next page. I kind of reiterated this kind of earlier as far as what property types work for. It can really be any property type. Building costs at least $250,000 or greater. Works for TI, leasehold improvements. Again, not advantageous for flippers. Or let's say you're in a situation where I've had some clients that say, well, you know what, I already have a lot of losses, and I have losses get carried forward indefinitely, and they'll say, when could we be able to utilize this appreciation? They say, well, maybe not for another 4 or 5 years or whatever. In that particular case, it may not make sense to do a cost segregation study, because if you already have losses that are carried forward from previous years, what good is it going to do for you to get additional losses now that are going to be carried forward in the future? So it's really unique. Each one is a unique circumstance, so it's going to depend upon all those different situations. And again, I want to reiterate that this is not advantageous for flippers. Next page. How does our process work? What we do is we provide a free preliminary analysis for any property. What we ask is for information on the building, when's it going in service, depreciation, cost, address, things of that nature. Daryl, how'd that process work for us when we provide that for you?
It was really good. I mean, fantastic.
Okay.
It was.
So we just get that information. We come back with a very conservative estimate of the savings. We want to under-promise and over-deliver on what the depreciation's going to be. And in your particular case, and for the vast majority of our others, when the study was completed, the savings are greater than what we anticipated or what we said we thought it would be. Again, preferred under-promise and over-deliver on that. It doesn't always happen. Usually when it doesn't happen, it's because maybe the information we were given up front isn't accurate. So again, we'd like to provide a free preliminary analysis. I did see a question come up about does it work for $800,000 property? And yes, it can work for a situation like that. I'd like to address on the next page parcel asset disposition. One thing this is advantageous for if you're planning on doing a renovation. What we'd like you to do is, and sometimes we'll actually do a separate site visit to be able to take pictures of before and after of what's being done. I want to look at the spreadsheet of what are the different things that you're doing with that property, and we can do the analysis not just on the acquisition at cost itself, but also on the renovation portion of it. So that's how that works. One thing I'll mention here, they talked about LED retrofit projects. We actually have a separate energy division whereby we source LED lights, and we can provide a turnkey solution for any property nationwide to be able to not only provide the lighting, we can do the labor if you don't have that, but also be able to identify what are the tax savings, not just from a cost segregation standpoint, but maybe energy rebates in your particular area, whether it might be state or local. And we do all that. Or if you want to do portions of it yourself, maybe you already have the staff in place to do the installation of the lights. That's fine as well. Okay, let's just go on the next page. One thing I indicated earlier was when we get the study, we'll provide you with that free preliminary analysis. What happens is that 50% of the fee is due up front, the other 50% upon completion. The study will typically take somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. We do studies in all 50 states. I recently did 4 projects in Hawaii. And we can do them. We have boots on the ground throughout the country to be able to do the site visits. And that's another point I want to make, and that is that someone will come to me and say, well, I want to do a cost segregation study, but excuse me, but I don't want to have a site visit. Well, that's not going to be a fit if we ask them to go somewhere else, because we only do the gold standard of cost segregation, which will require a site visit, because we know that being able to do that, we will be able to get the maximum amount of depreciation, and also be able to provide that free preliminary, audit protection in case you ever get audited by the IRS. I saw a question that popped up, asked about whether work on a primary residence, and the answer is no. You cannot do cost segregation on your primary residence. It'll work for a single family short-term or long-term rental, However, it has to be for investment purposes. It's not some work for something that you live in. I saw a question come up, but Daryl, I don't think I missed it. What was that about the LED lights? The question that came up.
What is LED lighting and HVAC retrofit analysis? Or what is LED?
There's just, won't get too much in the weeds on that one, but it's just that there is separate analysis that we can do on that. It's really going to work most advantageous for large properties, which are at least 50 to 100,000 square feet. In order to take advantage of it, there's the 179D and 45L. Just to give you, if you really want the numbers on it, but it just suffice to know that we can take a look at additional analysis for lighting, and the devil's in the details. Let's talk about that offline and see what we can help. R&D would be research and development tax credit.
Hey, Mark, there was a question. I think Addie wanted you to clarify. Can you benefit from the cost segregation on a primary home?
No. Just properties for investment purposes.
And then Carl has a question down there too.
That he said that last bullet is one of many factors I choose CSSI for my cost segregation. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. All right. That we represent our study in the event of an order at no cost to our clients. Yeah. All right.
Well, Daryl,
Can I
thank you.
elaborate on that?
Yes.
Hey, Mark, this is Carl Millsap. How you doing?
Good.
All right. The reason I was sharing that is when we looked at doing cost segs on a couple of our properties, we got a bunch of different quotes, but we couldn't. I mean, when you're doing a cost seg, I mean, you're turning it in, it's on your taxes. So if you're going to get audited, then you want a company who will be able to support the work that they did. And when I talked to one or two of the other cost seg companies, they weren't willing to do that at no cost. Essentially, they weren't willing to back up their work. So that's why I'm saying that's why I shared that bullet.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And that's why I indicated earlier, you know, there's some firms that won't do that. And like I said, if someone says they don't want to have a site visit, then we encourage them to go somewhere else. That's just not what we do. From our perspective, it's not how much you pay for a study. Yeah, maybe you'll save a couple $1,000s on the study, but is it gonna be bulletproof? Are you gonna ever have a situation in case you get audited? Again, we want you guys to be able to sleep well at night, knowing there's never going to be an issue with the studies that we that we do. So so thank you for those comments.
Yeah, I would like to say too, back when I was managing commercial property, Mark's company, CSSI, also did a study here in Arizona. So it's not just one state that they do it in. They did it it was just under 300,000 square feet. And it was a huge savings for that owner who had just taken over the property. They did get questioned about the write-offs that they were doing, and CSSI was able to step in and back up the reporting that they had given. So it's a testament as to what they present, how they do the work, and then how they back it up in the end as well.
Yeah, we sometimes have had clients that they're being audited, not because of our study, but for other reasons. And the IRS will then take a look at it. And we have represented studies in the past. And again, when you do everything properly, we go in with a mountain full of paperwork for the client. It's gonna blow them away because we're professionals. We've been doing this for many years, and it's not going to be an issue. And there may be other firms will say, oh, well, we'll defend the study. Well, will you defend the study 100%? I mean, it's unlimited. It's something that could potentially cost us a lot of money, but that's okay because we stand behind what we do.
Excellent. Excellent. Mark, I do have a question. So right now we're going through, we're taking out, replacing all of the old appliances. We're putting in brand new appliances. We're putting in electricity into our storage units. We are putting in lights into our storage units. So is there anything that I need to be doing? Or would I need to get maybe, I guess, an updated cost segregation study done after the work has been completed? And we're also doing some foundational work. So would I need to do any kind of update or anything like that?
Yes, it would be advantageous for you to supply that information to us. So, and again, each situation is going to vary depending upon what it is. So, like I said, sometimes it'll be advantageous to get in there and take photographs ahead of time, but that's not necessarily feasible or possible in all instances. But we'll be able to help you with that, provide additional analysis. Typically what happens is we'll ask when you're doing a cost segregation study, what are you planning on doing with CapEx? And if you have an estimate on that, we can take a look at that and include that in the study. Quite honestly, I do, many of these studies, I don't remember what the particulars were with yours, whether we had that conversation or not, but I'll be happy to take a look at that and see what we can do to help.
Okay. Well, we definitely have pictures before, and we have the after. So, and once we're done with the foundation, once we're done with the electricity and all that, we'll have new pictures to show all of that. So we'll definitely be prepared. And so whatever you're going to need, we'll be able to present it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mark? Any other questions? No?
Hey, Daryl, I had one. Just
Go ahead, Moses.
How you doing?
All
Mark,
right.
I know we talked about the gold standard of, and I don't know if you want to touch on it just because I don't know what your CPA background is, but why is it that most limited partner don't qualify to take the depreciation up front?
It really depends on what their circumstances are and what type of gains there might be. Because if you're in a situation where if you're going to have losses, it needs to go against whatever the gains are. So if you're in a situation where maybe depending upon the circumstance, you may not have any gains associated with it, then maybe you're not going to be able to utilize those losses. But again, it's going to vary depending upon maybe you're a limited partner, but you own other properties. So maybe those losses can be applied toward other properties, or again, in a situation with a real estate professional. But a lot of people don't meet that criteria. So again, the answer is it depends. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
Well,
Mark, do you mind if I answer that question? Addy here.
Go ahead.
The gentleman, Moses. Hi, Moses. If I can give an example, say you have limited partners on a $1 million warehouse property, and you have rental income coming from that warehouse property. The limited partner is a doctor, for example. They're not a real estate professional. So they could use the depreciation and apply that towards the rental income the property is generating and offset that. In addition to that, if they have rental income coming from other properties that they own, they can use the depreciation from your property and apply it towards applied against the rental income coming from their other properties and offset that income and nullify their tax burden. Mark, is that a good example?
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Yeah, I get that all that. I think the more nitty gritty to it was how do you maturely participate as a limited partner? Because you would still have to be maturely participating in order to use it within that year. But if you're limited, you don't do any physical work to the property or management or anything, so you have to suspend that loss until disposition.
That's why it would go back to whatever Addie just indicated.
Okay, no, I qualify, I do it, and the rule is you have to elect to treat all of your transaction as one business, and that's where the qualification comes in. I'm a realtor by profession, so you have to be able, even though it's limited, I have several limitations, but I take my depreciation within the year. It's created because I qualify and elected to be treated as one real estate activity. And once you do that, then you can take it within the year. Other than that, you have to suspend it.
Yeah, but what we've just proven here is the point that it's very complicated, and it really is helpful for you to look at your own tax counsel as far as your unique circumstance, because I'm sure there's some people listening to this that could misinterpret it one way or the other. So that's why in some cases I try not to get into too much of the detail, because it does vary so much. Talk to your tax counsel, find out what your unique circumstances are and what you can do.
Exactly. Wow. Well, Mark, I definitely want to say thank you for the presentation, because you definitely helped me out, and with me with the property in Dayton, and now we're looking at more property. We're working closely with Jody Waybright, and with her being the property management company. So this presentation, although you worked with me and you told me a lot of what to do, and I will say this, I had a lot of questions, and I was able to go to Mark, ask him the questions, and he took the time to explain. It wasn't like he was trying to rush me off or anything like that. If I had a question, because I think I messed up the documents, I think one time, and I sent it in. I think he said, and then I had to call him and say, well, I messed it up. He said, no problem, Daryl. We take care of that. Right. So I just want to say that, but I thank you, Mark, very much for that. And
let me
for the presentation.
Mention one thing else, Daryl, and that is in the case of your tax professional, we all know that each tax professional has a different proficiency when it comes to real estate. Some do it day in, day out. They understand all the particulars of it. There's others that maybe aren't well versed in it. And one thing that we'll do is once the study is provided, but in case of Daryl, if I remember correctly, we sent it to you and never heard back. However, let's say if your tax professional has questions about what do I do with this information, with no additional cost, what we'll do is we'll have a conference call with them. We'll hold their hand. We'll walk them through. This is what you need to do, because our objective is to not only help you out in all aspects, but also your tax professional to make sure they can utilize the study for you.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, listen, everyone. Listen, Mark, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I'll be giving you a call as soon as I get this next property under contract.
Okay.
All right.